What's up? Welcome to another edition of Chat It Up. I'm Greg Larnard, and this direction is my man, Mr. Joseph Guthrie, hanging out with us. It's just the two of us today. Just the two of us,
Yeah.
you and I. I'm not a great singer, but I do love to sing. If I could be reincarnated with one skill coming back into my life, I think it would
Mhm.
be to be able to sing.
If you agreed, 100% agreed, because I'm the same way. I love to sing, can't sing. If you could pick a voice, like if you come back and you have somebody's
Ooh.
voice,
Like
who would
speaking voice
you?
or singing voice?
Your singing voice,
Okay,
like
because
when
I
you
was like, I
sing, you
like
sound
my I like
exactly
my
like.
speaking voice, but singing wise,
Mhm.
man, I'm a huge fan of Andy Grammer. I just think
Oh
like
yeah.
lyrically, he's really good. I love the way he sounds and the different levels that he can sing at. And it's not like he's one of these guys that like needs auto tune to be good. Or I just think
Mhm.
like classically, he has a really really good voice. Because I've
Yeah.
heard him live 3 times and he's been awesome every single time I've heard him.
Okay.
And so yeah, I think I would go with like Andy Grammer.
Hell yeah.
What
That's
about
a good.
you?
That's a little. It's like out of the realm because I feel like the normal responses would be like Chris Stapleton or um, Frank Sinatra or somebody like that or like what's his name, Michael Bolton or somebody like that
Michael
in
Bublé's
that.
got a fantastic
Yeah,
voice
that's
too.
that's I was trying, dude.
Yeah.
I could see his face and I couldn't think of his
Yes.
name. Um, Dude, for me, probably he's one of my favorite artists. A guy named John Bellion. Um,
Ooh, I don't know
he's
John
got a
Bellion.
he's incredible, dude.
I'll have to look
Um,
him up.
Good singing voice, and he does this. Really, what's good to watch, or what's really intriguing to watch, is his. He used to do them on YouTube. He used to do these like video, like the process of how he
Mhm.
makes songs, and a lot of it is him making sounds and making noises, and then like verbing it down, reverbing it down, and turning them into beats in his songs. It's a whole thing,
Whoa,
dude. He's incredibly talented.
that's pretty
Um,
sweet.
but saw him
You have to
live, and it
text me that
was
because I'm not gonna remember his name. So text that to
oh,
me
dude.
after the show, and I wanna look up some of his stuff.
I'll
I'm
link
into
you
that.
the whole Glory Sound Prep album is like it's phenomenal. It's a big vibe switch too. So like you'll go from song to song and they'll feel a little bit different.
Mhm.
But some will be weird. They'll have like these odd notes and noises and things like that. It's a listening experience
Nice.
to me personally. So
Okay, I'm in for a listening experience for sure. We also have some other experiences that we're going to be getting into and talking about today. A lot of football experiences. Your team got a win. My team got a win over the weekend. So it was good to be back on the gridiron. Now they weren't runaway victories. We both had to sweat it out a little bit. I think both of us sort of equal ground in terms of sweatiness this weekend for both of our teams.
yeah, it was stressful. This was supposed to be like
Was.
I mean, you're playing a down Kentucky team that's kind of looking for their identity. Georgia's playing a team that everybody sold up the river with a freshman quarterback and a coach that everybody believes is just going to get fired. And somehow we end up with two dogfights. And it's just like, don't take a Saturday for granted, man. Don't take a win for
You
granted.
can't.
So,
You can't. Like that's what they always say in the NFL as well. Is like you cannot take any opponent for granted. And we've already seen time and time again this year, Jay, of like teams in new conferences and things like that. There's a bunch of different upsets. Teams are maybe better than we expected, maybe in some cases worse than we expected. But yeah, we're gonna get. I do want to get into this Florida Georgia game a bit, and we certainly will do that. But let's start with Tennessee and look, I'll always say it. A win is a win is a win. 28-18, but you're down 10-7 at halftime. And this is a game on Thursday when we did the show, Jay. We were talking a lot about it. I was very adamant that I felt like this is a game and a team that Tennessee could boat race. You're coming out of the bye week. You should, I hope, have things rocking and rolling, and you want to see Nico in this offense kind of humming a little bit. And when you look at what Nico actually did in this game, like this is probably one of his best efforts. Like his completion percentage was really good. He threw for almost 300 yards, didn't throw an interception. Like when you look at what Nico was able to do, like it was a really good performance. Yet the
mhm.
offense still found a way to struggle. Dylan Sampson, 27 carries, a buck 42 on the ground, and a couple of tugs. Peyton Lewis got himself into the end zone. Like it felt like this offense should have produced more points, and they should have won this game by a little bit more. Um, Look, Brock Vandegrift, Wimsatt came in there in the second half, and he gave them a little bit of an element of the ability to run and kind of threw a little bit of a wrench into what Tennessee wanted to do, maybe. But I was slightly disappointed. And honestly, this game probably could have been a little different if Max Gilbert didn't miss 3 field goals.
Yeah. I mean, you leave 9 points off the board. What could have been 21 if you turn those into touchdowns, and this game looks a whole lot different at what would that be, like 36 to 18,
18.
or 50 to 18, barring you get the full you get touchdowns on all those. But I mean, this game was a little interesting because I kind of thought Tennessee might start a little slow, but just because that Kentucky defense is real stingy. But I ultimately thought how they'd end up running away with it was Kentucky's inability to consistently move the ball, and that would lead to their defense just being on the field and eventually just getting tired. But that's not how this played out. Kentucky had a decent game plan. They came out, they were able to move the ball a little bit. Of course, Brock Vandegrift goes out with the head injury, and when that happened, and then Gavin Wimsatt throws the interception, it's like, oh, okay, that was when he threw the interceptions. Like, that's the nail in the coffin, because they weren't able to just consistently move it, and he did kind of bring in a different element, but after a while, felt like the defense kind of got dialed in and figured him out a little bit, and Kentucky just kind of ran out of options. So overall, I mean, Dylan Sampson's Dylan Sampson. As he moves, Tennessee will move. Nico did look better. He would have had over 300 yards had a pass not hit somebody in the worst place it could have hit, right in the hands. I mean, that just, it happens. So, but
these things are not always meant for catching.
You understand my struggles a little bit. Like, it's a good sign. Nico looks more comfortable as we move into the last leg of the season. So I think some good things to take away, as far as at least the drops haven't been a consistent problem throughout the year, and they just showed up in one game where ultimately you were able to just kind of be like, yeah, we are the better roster, we are the better team, and we're gonna win this game. So
yeah, no, it was definitely good to see that they were able to win. And look, as you mentioned, as Dylan Sampson goes, he's really good at football. He's really good at running the football. Yeah, he is really good. As much as I like to give shit to Miggy about like him not being as good as Jalen Wright, like I really like what he's able to do. But I will say this, that like Jalen Wright also did have. I would have loved to see Jalen Wright in Dylan Sampson's shoes right now, because like Dylan Sampson isn't really competing with anybody. While Jalen Wright was there, he had Jabari Small. He also had Dylan Sampson. And obviously he's got to get carries. So it's like the carries were a little spread out, but now I know Peyton Lewis is there. I know there's some other guys that have carried the ball, but it's basically the Dylan Sampson show. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, he's the engine of the offense, man. And it's going to be one of those things where it's like, if Dylan gets bottled up, that's when you're going to be like, okay, this is going to get sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many teams you have left on the schedule, outside of one that is really a threat to stop the run like that. But I mean, the way they're playing, it looks like they're going to give you a couple of bonus chances. So who knows, man? It's still a lot left to play for Tennessee. All your goals are still ahead of you. And shout out to Dylan Sampson for setting, was it the single season touchdown record?
Yep. He set the
most touchdowns in a season.
Touchdown record, a record that had been held since like 1925.
20, I think 25 or 28. They showed it on the broadcast. It was one of General Neyland's players.
Yes.
General Neyland had said this guy was like I think the broadcast said that General Neyland had stated he was one of the best players he'd ever seen. It's like, if only he could see players now.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's like night and day. I'm trying to look up
involved.
Oh, so much. It's crazy. Yeah. it was really impressive. And look, how many games we have left? Like 5 or
4.
4?
Yep,
Yeah.
left in the regular season. Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if he added at least 5 more touchdowns to that total.
Yeah, especially one of those games being, was it UTEP?
Yes,
Yeah,
there is a
UTEP.
UTEP. He might not have to play after halftime, though.
Yeah, but he could rack up 4 touchdowns in the
Mhm.
first half. I mean,
Mhm.
you never know. So Dylan could be setting a record that is going to be around for a while. So
Yeah, I know they're a run heavy team and they're a run first team and all this, but like in that game
Mhm.
specifically against UTEP, I would love to see them just like kind of like they did early in the season, just like throw the ball around the yard a little bit. Like, let's get
Just
some
sling it.
feel goods. Yeah, get some feel goods. I know you want to run the ball, and that's probably what they're going to gear up to stop. But like, let's get some feel goods for Nico. Let's get some feel goods for the wide receivers that have been much maligned. Like we came into the season talking about how this could be potentially the deepest group and most talented group of wide receivers in all of college football, and it really just hasn't played out that way. There doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be like a number one. It's just like a bunch of like 2s and 3s running around out there.
Hmm.
Like I think Mike
Yeah, and
Matthews can potentially get to be a 1, but like they don't have a dominant Luther
yeah,
Burton, Ryan Williams, Restrepo from Miami. Like they just don't have
dude.
these guys.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where it's like the ceiling is there. I think the
Mhm.
ceiling is there personally for Mike Matthews, but he's young, man, and it's you gotta balance his talent with his confidence and how well he knows the offense, and it's one of those things where it's like, of course you want to come watch him come out and ball, but he's still young, man. We don't get to see him in practice every day, so
Yeah.
um,
I
we
think
don't
he
know.
he showed up on the field a little bit in this game. I think he had a catch or so. He did
Yeah.
well, he had 1 catch. He didn't have any yards. But yeah, you know what I was also
Hmm.
very pleased about um was that they actually got the tight end, Miles Kitselman,
Hmm.
involved in this game, and that
Yep.
might be an avenue for them to pass the football. Like they don't have to always go explosive, and I know they go the wide screens, the wide receivers, and things like that. But it was sort of nice to see Nico utilize his tight end as sort of a security blanket to a certain degree, and maybe that helped him make some smarter decisions within this game.
Yeah. And I think you put it well there when you have a security blanket. He has somebody that he knows, okay, I've got 2nd and 6. I've got, my tight end on a little hook route, or I've got him on like a little, like 5 yard out or something. I know I have a guy I can go to that I've built trust with. And I think that's huge for a quarterback in terms of their confidence and how it allows them to see the rest of the field, knowing that they have a guy that's like, I can trust this dude when
Mhm.
I need to go to him on 2nd and 6 or 3rd and 9 or something like that. So I think that's huge, and especially being Nico being first year starter and stuff like that. That's big for him to find in a game like this late in the season.
Shout out to my man Jamarius. He's upstairs right now. We're doing obviously a virtual show here. He was listening to our conversation a little bit, and he wanted to throw his 2 cents into the conversation when it comes to Tennessee. He's a big Vol fan, so let me read you what he thinks. He
Oh
said
yeah.
Tennessee needs to find ways to quit shooting themselves in the foot offensively. They cross the 50 with ease, consistently turn what should be 6 into 3 points or less, obviously, with the kicker missing field goals. Negative plays, whether
Mhm.
it's sacks or penalties, have plagued them all year. They need to finish in the first half. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah, because playing Kentucky, and especially this version of Kentucky that we've seen this year, this is a team that you can get away with stuff like that. You can get away with settling for field goals and not getting touchdowns and having a few negative plays and some drive stall. Like, if you're wanting to make run deep into the college football playoff, and if you're wanting to have success when you play Georgia ultimately towards the end of the season, you're going to have to start converting those 3s into 7s.
Hmm.
Um, and you're going to have to limit negative plays, because if you make the playoff and you come up against one of these teams like an Oregon or an Ohio State, some of these offenses that I know Ohio State hasn't clicked the most at sometimes, but the potential's there, the explosives there. You're gonna you're gonna be kind of shocked at how fast you could quickly fall behind if you're settling for 3s, and it's something you got to get worked out before you try to make a run deep into the playoff against some of these more high powered offensive teams.
Yeah, and Tennessee, they stayed at 7 in the AP rankings. They moved up to number 6 in the coaches poll this week, so securely in the top 10, which is good. And they've got Mississippi State coming up this weekend. Massive favorites there. I
Mhm.
believe they're at home. They are at home before they go
Yep.
face your Georgia Bulldogs, and that game will be at 7:30. Now, I want to ask you this because I had a quick
Mhm.
conversation with a Tennessee fan this weekend while I was doing baseball lessons, and we kind of were just talking. It was fun. Him and his grandson were all dressed in like all black Tennessee. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
it's dark mode this weekend. I
Dark
was like,
out.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool that they were doing that with the squad, big ball fans. One
Mhm.
thing that I've also kind of noticed, Jay, too, and I don't, you obviously know more college football and about the history of it than I do, but what I'm curious is like, it seems like Tennessee has a ton of night games so far this year. Like, is this
Yeah.
is this typical, or is this something that seems a little bit like extra? Because like it never seems like they play during the day. It's always at night.
No, this feels like it's been a few. It feels like it's definitely been more night games than normal, and I think that has something to do also with the changing of the hand in terms of networks. Like with CBS, a lot of these Vols matchups like would have been 3:30 games as opposed to ESPN slotting them later. Which I know the Bama game was still a 3:30, but like I think that's something that has to do with it. Is now, instead of some of your games being on ESPN, it's like all of your games are going to be on ESPN. There is no other network that is going to have a say in when they slot you. And so ESPN can just slot you wherever. And if they want to put you at a night game, they can. So I think that's contributed to it. Um, but I have noticed that there have been a couple of more night games for Tennessee this year, which, I mean, if you're a fan, no, don't complain. It's always better than noon games. Um, Even if you're playing some, I guess, I don't want to say lesser competition, but Mississippi State's in a rebuilding phase. So
Yeah,
yeah.
they really are. And that game's a night game. That game's going to be at 7 o'clock, and then the Georgia one's at 7:30. Like
Yep.
we just found out that one on
Mhm.
ABC, and then UTEP, of course, that's a 1 o'clock game because it's not like a prime time
Yeah.
SEC type of matchup. And honestly, dude, like I wouldn't be surprised if that matchup against Vanderbilt, if they continue to play
Mhm.
well, like is
Yeah.
a prime time 3:30, 7 o'clock type of game.
Mhm. Yeah, especially if say if Tennessee pulls off the win against Georgia, and then Vandy manages to win out the rest of their season up until that point. I think um, they've got a tough matchup this week in South Carolina. Then they go to LSU. They're on a bye. Then they go to LSU and then Tennessee. So it's gonna be tough. But I mean, if Vandy's 6-5, that could be a bigger game for the weekend. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Rivalry weekend typically brings a lot. So we'll see.
Yeah, that it does. Speaking of rivalries and SEC competition, how about your Georgia Bulldogs? You were sweating a little bit as Florida was ahead, much like Kentucky was early in
Yep.
this game.
Yep.
I know we had talked about it on Thursday. Y'all were without two defensive starters in the first half for their targeting
Hmm.
calls.
Yep.
So it seemed like that helped coming back. I was out recruiting all day on Saturday. You got a chance, obviously, to watch this game start to finish. You also were live tweeting about it. We really love that up on the Twitter account. Check us out all over social media, by the way, at Chatted Up Sports and wherever you get your podcasts as well. Forgot to do that, but now we got it in. And yeah, so talk to me a little bit about your feelings about this Georgia team and the struggles that they had against Florida in the first half and then
Yeah.
being able to figure it out late in that game.
Well, it's I don't know. This is how many games we played this year? 8. So this is our fifth time revisiting this now. I think, man, this is just what Carson is this year.
Yeah.
I've been a notorious Carson defender. My other Georgia buddies have not, so I have been very much alone on the defend Carson Beck Island, because I saw what he did last year. I mean, he threw 5 interceptions, all or 6 interceptions all of last year, and he's thrown 11 in the last 5 games. Um, I don't know what's going on with him, man. I don't know what's caused him. This feels like when I watch him, it feels like some kind of like if we had gotten a new offensive coordinator and the system was different, then I could see this kind of regression. But Bobo's still there. I mean, yeah, I don't think it can be overstated how much it meant losing Brock and Ladd,
Yes,
especially
I was gonna
especially
say.
watching Brock and Ladd in the NFL and knowing, oh, hey, they weren't just college guys. Like they're doing this against some of the best players. Like I don't think that can be overstated how much he misses having them and having them as go-to targets. But I've kind of gotten to the point where it's like this is just what you are until you're not. Until you're not, this is what you are, and this is what you should expect as a Georgia fan going in for every game the rest of the season. Is that at some point Carson's going to make a sketchy throw, and are you going to get lucky enough for that sketchy throw to bounce off a DB's hands, or are you going to be unlucky enough for it to get deflected at the line and intercepted? Like
Yeah.
they ran a stat across the bottom line of the screen. Carson is the first quarterback. I believe it said in the SEC, but I might be wrong. He's the first quarterback in I think 20 plus seasons to throw 3 interceptions in his last 2 games and win both games. So it's not fun to hear that. It's very frustrating to hear that, especially when as a fan you don't get to see him in practice. You don't really get a whole lot of answers. All you see is Carson throwing picks and Kirby not making a decision, which I might be in the wrong and I might be unpopular, but I agree with him because I don't think what sits behind him is any more ready or prepared. But the angle I wanted to come at this from, um, for me, because I've seen a lot of people rip on Carson, and I think that's kind of low hanging fruit, as they say. It's really easy to just say, "Oh, he's throwing picks, he's doing that, he's doing this." We've seen him look good, and we know that that's in him. I'm choosing to believe that at some point that version of him will come back somehow, some way. But the ultimate thing that I would say for Georgia fans is Carson has thrown 11 picks in his last 5 games, and you are 4-1. How many other teams are doing that? How many other coaches are having their team ready enough to play where when things are going south and it feels like the offense is just completely anemic, they're just falling all over themselves because the quarterback is making some bad decisions? How many teams are going 4-1 in that stretch? And I know you haven't played a gauntlet week in and week out, but you went to number one Texas and you won by double digits with Carson throwing 3 picks. You beat Florida, and I know DJ Lagway went out, and we can sit and speculate all day about what would have happened, but that's all it'll be is speculation. You beat Florida for the fourth time in 4 years. You had a senior class go 4-0 versus Florida for the first time since the late 70s, early 80s, and Carson's throwing 3 interceptions. So, I mean, for me, your reaction should be it's frustrating, and you have every right to be frustrated as a Georgia fan because of how good he looked last year. But at the same time, you're still winning. You are still beating teams by double digits, and you're spotting them three. You're spotting them 3 possessions. I don't think that can be overstated how insane that is, because there's not many teams I don't think there's any team that I could think of that would turn the ball over that much and come out of this stretch 4-1 and have all of their goals still ahead of them. I mean, that's most of those teams lose to Texas. Most of those teams lose to Florida. I mean, we lost the Bama game, but you can only dig yourself out of a hole so many times. Um, like I said, it's not fun. It's not positive to look forward to playing Ole Miss next week and go, well, how many possessions are we going to spot them? How many possessions are we going to give Ole Miss and a high powered offense like that? But man, you're 4-1 in that last stretch. You're 7-1 on the season. Kirby's like 53-3 in his last however many regular season games.
Stupid.
It's just like try not to take it for granted because there are many other fan bases that would trade places with you in a heartbeat. where if their quarterback, if they had to watch their quarterback throw in three interceptions in a couple of games and they knew they were still going to win by double digits, they would trade places with you in a heartbeat. Like, there's probably 6 to 7 other programs that would be like, no, we're good because we're on the right track. But a majority of other programs would gladly take that week in and week out. Having frustrating quarterback play, still being good enough to win by double digits. So I'm choosing to put my faith in Carson and Mike Bobo. I think they can get it figured out. I do. But it's, at this point, you just have to accept that until he's not, Carson is what he is, and he's going to turn the ball over. So it's not fun, but it is kind of fun because you're still winning. So
I get what you're saying.
Watching, like, reading Twitter and everything, live tweeting the game and stuff. That's all I saw, man. No one talked about, not a soul talked about, that's 4 wins in a row versus Florida and you won by double digits. All anybody talked about was how ugly Carson is, which is like, what are we doing, guys? Come on. That's just,
people like to tear other people down when they're not doing well. Like if your favorite sports team is not playing well, then yeah, now we're going to start throwing personal attacks at these kids, which is stupid.
I don't get it, because I'm not going to say I get it, because I don't do that. I'm not going to sit here, like, I will tell you, yes, Carson is not playing well, but I'm not going to sit here and throw personal insults at a 22-year-old. Like, no. And some people would come across and say, well, that scrutiny and that attitude is warranted because they're being paid now. They are professional athletes. The amateurism has been removed. And it's like, I mean, you can come on social media and say what you want. Nobody's going to stop you. But I don't know, man. That's not my vibe. That's not my thing. I mean, they're ultimately, at the end of the day, they're just kids.
It's the Twitter fingers. Like, anybody can sit behind a keyboard or a phone and they can say whatever they want. They're tough. They're high and mighty. They have that power to be able to pull somebody else down because they don't feel good about themselves, whatever it may be. So it is what it is. I think, like, just to kind of counter what you were talking about, and I think and I know you know this, but I'm going to say it anyways.
Yeah.
Where people are getting frustrated and why people are so upset. I get your points about, hey, 4 wins in a row against Florida. You're 4-1 in this stretch where he's thrown 11 interceptions or whatever it is, like craziness that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think where everybody gets frustrated is it's like, yes, you beat Texas. You had an all-time game from your defense. Like, y'all just suffocated Quinn Ewers in that offense. Like, they couldn't do anything. And I think what's frustrating, and it's sort of the same way with Tennessee fans, I feel like, is that like, you look at both of our defenses and you're like, this defense is really, really good. Now, on Tennessee side, obviously Georgia fans, you're used to it. But on Tennessee side, it's like, this is something new. We have not had this level of defense in a very long time.
Yeah.
And it feels like we are going to waste how good this defense has been with shoddy quarterback play. And what you're worried about as a Georgia fan is that, the defense will be able to do what they need to do. But what happens if we have a game like a half against Alabama? Are we going to be able to come all the way back? Is Carson not going to be able to, throw interceptions or turn the football over?
Yeah.
Like, to me, like, that is what is so scary as a Georgia fan right now, because you're just your expectations are so high for this team and this program, as they should be, winning back-to-back national championships not too long ago, that you're so used to Stetson Bennett not making those mistakes and playing like championship level football, not being amazing, but playing championship level football. And you're not getting that with Carson Beck right now. And it's got to be frustrating because you're used to better than that. And like you said, he didn't throw that many interceptions last year. So, like, you're used to better than that. And it feels like if we can't correct it against these worst teams, and I know you did it against Texas and you won.
Yeah.
When you get to the playoff, you start throwing interceptions, things are going to get magnified. You're playing better competition. You're not going to play a third-string quarterback from Florida.
Nope. And we saw it in
better, and that's where the frustration comes with people, and I know you know that.
Yeah, and we saw it in the Bama game. Now, did we know at the time watching the Bama game that this was and I think it's fair to say, this is a one-off from this Bama offense this year. They won't look this good again for the rest of the season. or up to this point, they have not looked as good as they looked in that first half. No, we didn't know that. But the same principle still applies as you move down on the season. When you play like an Oregon, who is much more clean and they're much more organized and they're much more efficient in terms of how they operate. When you play an Ohio State, who I know hasn't, looked the best at times, but still has that potential with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka, like that opportunity's there. And they also have Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. And so it's like, it is very frustrating. And I get it. Because I had those thoughts, like I battled with these own thoughts for myself, like watching the Texas game and then watching the Florida game. And I'm just like, man, it's real easy to get caught up in the negatives, and where it comes from, you spoke to the two national championship teams, is where it comes from, where most of the frustration comes from for Georgia fans is not, hey, well, we looked bad, but we still beat Florida. It's like, we didn't play to what has been perceived as what has been perceived and what has been established as the Georgia standard. Yeah. That is where the frustration comes from, is because it's like, hey, we know what this team can be, and they're just not. Do we know why? They're not. We don't know, but they're not living up to what we had seen from a rolling couple of years from Kirby Smart teams, with what was perceived to be better talent. Because as many Georgia fans will tell you they love Stetson, and many of the ones that tell you they love Stetson also asked for Stetson to be benched at one point in time. So keep that in mind. But a lot of fans, when they saw Stetson win that second national title and they knew Carson was sitting behind him, in the back of their mind, they thought, well, Carson's just going to be better. He just has to be. He was rated higher. Stetson's just a walk. Like, Kirby's doing all this with a walk-on. So Stetson, Carson naturally has to be better. That's not how football works. That's not how this goes. Just because someone's ranked higher, just because someone's rated higher, doesn't naturally mean that they're just going to be a better player. And you're watching that. I mean, you see it a lot with players that are rated high and their expectations are leaped on them, and they just don't live up to it. And It's not necessarily, I mean, it is Carson's fault, but it's not necessarily Carson's fault in the term of, like, Carson didn't set that ranking on himself. He didn't set those 4 stars on himself. He didn't apply, what 247 and Rivals and all these other rating organizations applied to him.
Well, he earned that with his play.
He did. But we see this with players where they earn it and then they just don't pan out.
They don't live up to that. It's not a new
fact. Yeah, it's not a new factor to have them not live up to the hype that they thought they were going to. And again, this all comes back to how good Carson looked last year, man. And I mean, at this point, it's Ladd and Brock, man. I mean, you have the best tight end that ever played college football, arguably. And, I'm not going to say Ladd's like the best receiver, but he was a damn good receiver. He's probably one of the better receivers that Kirby Smart's had since he's been at Georgia. I mean, I know George Pickens is there, but different style of receiver. But Ladd's probably one of the best receivers that Kirby's had since he's been at Georgia. Yeah. He filled the same role as like a McCole Hardman, and McCole's been in the league for what, 7 years now?
Yeah, he's been there for a while.
I mean, he's lasted. He hasn't been like a Justin Jefferson or anything like that, but he's been a serviceable wide receiver. So it's just ultimately, it's just frustrating because they're not living up to what the roster could be. So
yeah, and I think that's definitely fair to say. Our boy Matthew Williamson says, "Go Dogs!" Yeah, thrilled with the win. Trepidatious for the rest of the season. I would be too, honestly. Like, unless if this is just what Carson Beck is, you just got to hope in a big moment he does not make a bad decision. And it almost feels like where I am with not Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love right now, in terms of like an NFL comparison. Like, we know Carson Beck's talented, Jordan Love's talented, but every once in a while they just make stupid ass decisions and make a bad, just flat out make a bad throw. Like, it's just sometimes that's just what it is. And you have to hope that that defense, as good as it is under Kirby Smart there at Georgia, is going to have your back and be able to make a stand when Carson
Yep.
makes a mistake.
Yep. Just make sure the hole's not dug too deep. I mean, we saw what that limit is in the Bama game. It was 28 points. Just don't spot a team 28 points, and so we'll see what happens.
Just don't do that.
So yeah,
never want to do that.
Generally, a good strategy to not spot a team 28 points.
Yeah, it's just like I told Chase and Hannah the other day. I said, you know what? If you're ever thinking about spilling yogurt in your car, don't do it. It's not fun to try to clean up.
It's not a good idea.
No, it's just not a good idea. Don't do that. Keep it in the container. Don't fumble it around like an idiot like me. Keep it in the container and eat it. Don't waste it. Anyways, I wanted to ask you about something else when it comes to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you talking about a big thing that you wanted to see within this game was the running game get going. And you specifically mentioned former Florida Gator, Travis Etienne.
Yep. Trevor Etienne.
Sorry, Trevor Etienne. I knew it was one of the.
Dude, I do it all the time.
I can never get the Harbaughs right. I don't know which one coaches Baltimore and which one coaches.
They're both NFL coaches. So.
Joe or John and Jim. Like, can you make it like not both J's? Come on.
Yeah.
Who has it better than we do? Everybody. Because I can't figure out which one is which. Anyways, Trevor Etienne.
Yep.
He did not perform fantastic.
He didn't, and he ended up going out of the game. And I think was it Holly Rowe on the sideline that had said that he had planned. She had talked to Kirby and said that they had planned for him to come back in, but he just never did. So I don't know. That's one of those things where it feels kind of like, and from what I heard from today from Kirby's presser, is that he's very optimistic about Trevor. So it felt like one of those situations where they wanted to see how Nate would do with toting the rock. I mean, 19 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown. That's one of the better stat lines for a Georgia running back this season. So I think they felt content to just run it with Nate Frazier and hold Trevor out unless they absolutely needed him, in the hopes that he would be fine going into the Ole Miss game. And it looks like he's going to be. He had went out with I think it was a bruised rib or something like that. So ultimately, does it like, I wanted to see him kind of pop off against his former team, and I know he really wanted a big game, but I would rather him, go out and be available for the rest of the season than get hurt and be out in a winning effort versus Florida. So, hoping Trevor looks close to 100% on Saturday.
Here's to hoping, for sure. Anything else that you wanted to touch on when it came to the Georgia Florida game? What did you see that Florida did so well that enabled them to kind of hang around in this game? Was it simply just picking off and taking advantage of mistakes by Carson Beck, or did you see something else in terms of the fight that Florida played with and the grit a little bit? Obviously with Lagway, and then he went out with the hamstring injury, and then you have a third string quarterback coming in there, and what was it, like 13-13 at one point in the third quarter? So
it was I think halftime it was 13-6, and then it ended up being 13-13 and 20-20, and then that's where it kind of got away from Florida a little bit. But they had a good plan going in, man. Yeah. And they looked like a team that's, for all the reasons could have quit on Billy Napier, and for everything that's been said about Billy Napier, it looked like a team that was kind of playing inspired. Like, it looked like a team that was prepared, and that they had a plan for DJ, and they were executing it up until he went out of the game in that unfortunate injury. But it looked like a team, and I think that, to me, is more telling of how that team feels about Billy than anything else, is the fact that they have every reason to come out and just, other than they're playing for pride, and it's the Georgia Florida game, it's like one of the biggest rivalries in the Southeast. So they had pride to play for, man. And it looked like they wanted to be out there, and it looked like they had true belief that they could win the game. And I think that's huge that Billy was able to spark that out of his guys. And I think in the broadcast they had said that Billy was showing them videos and showing them like history and stuff of the game and the world's largest out and what this game means to Georgia fans and Florida fans and what it means to the players and I think you could see that because they didn't look like a team that was rolling out there with a 4-3 record. I mean, to them,
No,
they were
sure
like,
didn't.
"Oh, this is 0-0. We hadn't played a game like the first game of the season. We got everything to play for." And it's unfortunate that DJ went out because they very much could have and looked like they were getting ready to have Georgia on the ropes. So it's I know a lot of Florida fans are probably already checked out and they're probably already sold on Billy. Because as much as it is to come out and look good and ultimately lose to Georgia, even if you lost because of an unfortunate injury circumstance, which again we can speculate all day, I think where most Florida fans have drawn the line is how unprepared they looked in the Miami game and how unprepared they looked in the Texas A&M game, because it's kind of like I don't want to say this because I don't want it to be misconstrued as saying Billy is Jimbo, because he's not. I think Billy's a better coach, but to me it
Wow,
kind of
you
reminds
think
me
Billy's
of
a better coach than Jimbo Fisher?
Yeah.
Wow, I love that praise.
Yeah, I do.
I'm a big fan of that praise right there.
It kind of like it's not going to fly with Florida fans to come out and play Georgia close, like it did, or kind of like it did with Jimbo, where he'd come out and it's like, well, we beat Bama. So yeah, but dude, you went 3-9. Yeah, but we beat Bama. Okay, that's one game. Like there are 11 other games in the season, so I don't know. I'm very much someone who I think coaches, and I have changed my mind on this as I have evolved as a football fan. Yo, shout out Levi. What's up, man? Sorry, I have very much changed my mind on this as a football fan.
Hey, Levi.
That I think coaches need time. More often than not, coaches need time, and it's hard to justify that with Saban coming in with a national title in his second year. Kirby plays for a national title in his second year. Kirsignetti's got Indiana 9-0 in his first season. Like, so it's hard to sit there and say, well, you just need to give them time, because with the NIL and the transfer portal, we've seen, Mike Norvell last year turn around and almost took Florida State to the playoffs. Like, people want they want instant results. And I get it. There's a lot of investment. There's a lot of financial hang up on these. These games are worth millions of dollars. These programs are worth, I don't want to say billions of dollars, but hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it, but I don't know. I think it's a really good sign of how Florida came out and looked Saturday. Even with DJ going down, they still looked like they were prepared. And I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the roster differential is what ultimately I think led to the end result. But I think Billy could get it figured out if he was given the time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
in DJ Lagway,
I hope the brass there at Florida sees this, because you're right. Like, this is a group that could have come out and just gotten embarrassed and just thrown their cleats out on the field and their pads out on the field and could have gotten boat raced. And it's just been like, Georgia's just, they're just way better than us. Yeah. And so what's the point? We're not going to, we don't feel like we're going to a bowl. But this team and this program, like you said, they played inspired. It looked like they still are playing for something and playing for pride. And they're still trying to get 2 more wins to go to a bowl game. And we laid it out on Thursday. Like, that's very possible for them, the way that they've played. Some of these teams that they have coming up, if they beat Florida State, which they should, and then they go out there and they play tough against, gosh, I don't remember who the teams are that they have.
They play Texas, LSU, Florida State, and I think there's one more. I'm free. Ole Miss. They play Ole Miss.
Okay. So, you got to find an upset somewhere.
It's rough for Florida, but I mean, we knew that going in. We've talked about it all season. The schedule's just so lopsided.
Yeah, well, we were talking bad about Jackson Dart and Ole Miss, that they could potentially give them a game there, or LSU. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible. This game to me just continued to show why Billy Napier is going to retain his job and he won't be fired like everybody else wants him to be. I don't think he should be. And now he's got even more of a reason to sit there and say, like, one, obviously they probably don't want to pay his buyout. Like, it's going to cost a lot of money not to retain him. And two, like, you're right. Like, it is, I always call it a microwave society, Jay, that we live in. Everybody wants things instantaneously. They want the program to be good. Obviously, the expectations are high at Florida, which they should be. And Billy knew that going into that job. And when you have a recruiting class the way that dwindled like it did for him last year, that's not a good look. But this team is still continuing to play hard, and you lose Graham Mertz, and now you've potentially lost DJ Lagway. Like, he's going to have that sort of hill to stand on, or that leg to stand on, if they don't end up winning, 6 games and getting to a bowl game. Maybe they only win 4 or 5, especially if you're on a third string quarterback. Like, I don't know how much we can really expect out of this team, because everybody's going to be gearing up for the run. Dude threw 7 for 22 last week, like less than 100 yards. It wasn't good against Georgia. And I know that's Georgia's defense, but again, you still have a lot of really good teams and a lot of really good defenses to come up and face these next couple of weeks. So it's not going to be easy for Florida, but I do think they have a leg to stand on that to bring Billy back. And Billy's got a leg to stand on to say, hey, look, like, there were extenuating circumstances. And even with these extenuating circumstances, my guys still continue to scratch and claw and fight. And it does make a difference how you lose these games. Like, you look at this game and you see 34 to 20, they lose by 14. That was not a 14-point loss. That game was much closer than the final score indicated.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the last thing I'll say on is that, the one thing that Billy really does have to do is to salvage some kind of recruiting class going into next year, because that's ultimately what's going to be telling. Because it's like, if you manage to land a couple of big flips, as we get closer to National Signing Day being, early National Signing Day, but it's really National Signing Day next month. As we get closer to that, if Florida can manage to flip some of these guys and salvage that recruiting class, it's, it just end on a couple of high notes for the season. So.
Yeah, it's always good to hopefully finish on a high note and get some of those recruits in there, and hopefully want to build this thing back up. And hopefully the brass will say, we'll give you a little bit more time, Billy. We will go against the conventional wisdom of society, and we will give you a little bit more time. Hopefully they'll do that. Anyways, let's go to let's rock to our core 4, and let's talk about probably the biggest game from this weekend. Ohio State, number 4 versus number 3. They had to go to Happy Valley, and they had to try to win there. What was it, a whiteout? Like, it was
it wasn't technically a whiteout, but I mean, because they only get one whiteout a year, and it's at night. So for whatever reason,
whatever. I think it was like against Washington or something this year.
Yeah.
But it was kind of an interesting game. Like, Penn State, again, this is a game that felt like Ohio State should have won by more. They have Will Howard throws the pick 6 in the first quarter. It was literally his first pass. This is a dude that they talked about wanted to go to Penn State, and he, wanted to play at Happy Valley and the whole thing. And he comes out there and gets pick 6, the first pass that he throws in that stadium as an opposing player at Ohio State. But he settled in, and Penn State did not score an offensive touchdown. Like, they were toggling between the two quarterbacks, Drew Aller, nothing really to write home about in this game. And offensively, like, him and Prabula, Prabula only threw one pass. Sorry, this is a tongue twister there. But Aller wasn't anything good. He wasn't efficient. Everybody's been talking about, his completion percentage, this, that, and the other thing. Dude was 12 for 20 in this game. Couldn't get anything rolling against a legitimate defense in Ohio State. The weapons are null and void. The running game was absolutely putrid in this game for Penn State. The defense played huge for the Buckeyes, and the offense did what they needed to do in the first and second quarters to give them enough of a lead where the defense was able to hold on and just suffocate the Nittany Lions. Tell me a little bit about what you saw in this game. What stood out most?
Well, there was a photo I tweeted out, and I can't remember. It was 3 minutes and 44 seconds left in the second quarter. Penn State's leading receiver was Nicholas Singleton. I mean, you don't have a single catch from a tight end or a wide receiver. I mean, I just don't know how you. I don't know how you consistently expect to move the ball, and ultimately that's what led to them not scoring an offensive touchdown. Like, it's one thing to come out, you move the ball down the field early and you get that field goal, and then you turn around, you get the pick six, and it's boom, you're in a hole. You've got Ohio State in a hole.
Yeah.
You've got Ohio State in a 10-0 hole, and then you let them battle back. And it's 14-10, 17-10, and then there's that insane interception, which is just kind of like, I don't want to say it's Drew Aller's fault because it's not, but like,
Yeah,
that interception was huge, man. And then the thing that frustrated me the most out of anything was actually the very last time Penn State had the ball. So you get down to the 1 yard line. You get down to the Ohio State 3, and it's 1st and 10. Okay, you run with Katron Allen, no rush, no gain. You run with Katron Allen again, 1 yard. You run with Katron Allen again, 1 yard, and then Drew Aller pass incomplete to Khalil Dinkins. How is Tyler Warren not like your first option? Or maybe not your first option, but like your second and third option. Like, I get it.
he's got to be an option.
Yeah, like, and he was the option on 4th down, immediately taken away. Yeah. So it's like, why not give him a couple of shots? Why not try him? Like, I understand you've got a good backfield with Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, but like, you wait to go to him on 4th down? Like, you don't hand him the ball on like 2nd down? You don't direct snap to him and do like the tush. I mean, how many times have we watched Penn State do a glorified tush push with Tyler Warren and get like 4 yards?
Yeah.
Like, and you don't even attempt that? You don't even attempt to get what's arguably your best player the ball on a crucial on a crucial drive where you're on the 3, you're down by 7, there's only 5 minutes left in the game, and you just, I don't know. I'm not an offensive coordinator. I'm not. So who am I? I'm just a guy on the internet. Who am I to sit here and say maybe you should try to get the ball to Tyler Warren before it's 4th down? I don't know.
So let me ask you this, because you're sitting here and you're talking about those things. And I know we can second and third guess it all we want now here on a Monday night, but
yeah, it's easy to.
Yes. Realistically, would you have liked to see them potentially get maybe a little creative? Like, I'm talking like, what is it? A play where like Tyler Warren maybe gets the snap. He goes like he's running up the gut, stops, somebody leaks out, and you get a little jump pass, like a little Tim Tebow action.
I mean,
would you like to see them get more creative, or are you more like, hey, like, let's try to be conventional here. Let's not try to get too cute?
I think it depends on who you're playing and how you're playing. Because I mean, I don't know. It's fun to watch creative plays and things like that. I'm a big fan of trying to, and I know it's probably a little taboo, and it's kind of a roll of the dice because it can really cost you. But I'm a big fan of trying to get some kind of like pick play a little bit when you're down there on the goal line.
Yeah,
I'm more than fine with the 1st down call. Hand it to Katron Allen. No reason not to. With as good as your backfield is, no reason not to. I'm a little curious about. Did you get to watch the game?
I watched about the first, second quarter, and then I had to go recruit.
Okay, so
I watched about up until halftime.
On that last attempt, they were bringing a lineman like in motion, and then he would like stutter step and push like towards the guard, like towards the guard or tackle. I don't know what purpose he really served that he couldn't have served being lined up on the line. And had got. I mean, maybe they're trying to build him some momentum. I don't know. This is where I don't know, because my X's and O's knowledge is just not there, and I don't want to say I do know, but I don't know, man. I would have liked to have seen them maybe try, the 1st down run with Katron Allen, 2nd down run, and I don't know if Andel Kotelnicki has it in his. I don't know if he has it in his playbook, but some kind of like pick play. I mean, you got Julian Fleming, dude. he's not a scrub. I mean, he's not he's not good enough to start with the current Ohio State wide receiver rotation. How many people are?
That's true.
Like, do something to get him involved. I don't know. It's like they tried to line up and play bully ball, and they got bullied. And
Exactly. And that's kind of where I was leaning towards when I asked that question, because that was kind of a leading question on my part, because at
yeah,
that point for Penn State, what have they been able to do on offense? They haven't gotten to the end zone yet. They have not been able to get much momentum. You get down to that point, conventional offensive wisdom is not working and has not worked this entire game. I get what
no.
you're saying, Jay, about, hey, you want to run it on first down? Cool, go ahead. But at
Yeah,
some point, let's try something different to catch them off guard. Because, like you said, like bully ball was not working. They were
yeah,
getting bullied all day long. They get an opportunity to get down there to potentially tie the game or win it if you want to go for two. And at that point, I've got a great weapon in Tyler Warren that he can do a lot of different things, like a Taysom Hill, like a Tim Tebow. Can we
yeah,
utilize this man in a different way? Kind of to your original point of like getting Tyler Warren involved, but he wasn't involved. And I think at that point, you just have to throw a little creativity. You have to throw a little wrinkle in there. If it blows up in your face, I wouldn't have been upset, because I would have said towards James Franklin or whoever's calling the plays, hey,
yeah,
you tried something different. What you had been doing all day long hadn't gotten you into the end zone. I give you at least a little credit for having the cojones to try
yeah.
something a little bit different at that stage.
Yeah, and I mean, I would have loved to have seen. We've seen Tyler Warren line up in the backfield and take a snap. He did it against USC, so he
Yeah,
can take a snap.
of
Like,
course.
I don't understand. Like, line him up in the backfield, put a running back next to him, put a H back, lead blockers, and just let Tyler Warren run over somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude's what, like 6'3", 230? You get him on the edge, and it's a cornerback. He's going right through that man. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen I would have liked to have seen something to get Tyler Warren involved. I don't. Do I know what that play is? Could I write that play up on a whiteboard right now? Probably
Yes.
not.
Yes, you could have, Joseph. Give yourself more credit.
But I
If I
just
can
I don't
if
know.
I can in my limited college football knowledge be able to pull out what Tim Tebow used to do at Florida, like that they couldn't do that with Tyler Warren, I sure as shit that you could come up with something way better than I could. I'm sure you could draw up a better play than what we saw there on Saturday afternoon. Let's
I mean,
not kid
and
ourselves.
it's just that drive right there. Those last four plays, because they ran the
Mhm.
ball four times. It feels like it sums up Penn State, Ohio State, man. It's like you're that close, Penn State. You're that close, and it's just you're not beating Ohio State. You're not supposed to beat Ohio State, but
That's what I'm saying. Do something fun, creative, try to score a touchdown, score the touchdown, then go for the 2-point conversion and get out of Dodge.
yeah, because you've tried to
Like,
out Ohio State all day, and it
his whole career at Penn State, he's tried to do that, and it has not worked. It's like the definition of insanity. He keeps beating his head against the wall, and nothing is changing.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
something different, James. This is why you're 1-13 against top 5 AP ranked opponents.
it's
It's
tough,
not
man.
rocket scientist. It's not
Yeah,
rocket science.
and I mean, it's like he's made moves. Andrew Koldanicki's a good hire. From what we've seen from Kansas this year, Andrew Koldanicki was the only reason Jaden Daniels was doing anything. Like, James Franklin's trying. He is trying. And to the people that are like, maybe we should move on, I don't think you understand what the depths of college football. I don't think you understand what it's like down there. Like, ask some Tennessee fans from the 2010s. Ask some Florida State fans now what it's
Yep.
like to be in the depths of college football. Like, don't take for granted beating the team. Like, it sucks that you can't beat Ohio State. It sucks. You're not supposed to. You don't spin like they do. You don't recruit like they do. At least you're beating everybody else you're supposed to beat.
You
And
have
I
a
know
very
that's not the
positive
fun
outlook on
answer.
life today,
Well, it's just like
just in general.
it
You
goes
do.
back to what I said, man. I am very hesitant to fire coaches. Like, even when Mark Rick, when they were talking about Mark Rick being let go because they were like, hey, we can get Kirby. I was like, guys, wait a second now. Like, I know we're not winning natties, and I'd really like to see us win a natty, but like I don't want to fall to the depths of college football. Like, you
And
call
look what
that
happened. You didn't. You rose to the top.
we didn't. But
You rose to
I've
the top.
watched some programs that I didn't think could fall like that, and I'm just be careful what you wish for, man. That's all I'm saying to some Penn State fans. Just be careful what you wish for,
Well,
because
they've got.
you could go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
You could easily go from losing to just Ohio State to losing to half your schedule. And that's if it's not fun now, it's really not fun then. So that's just me. That's just me, and that's just my take.
Well, he did sign a 10-year contract back in 2021, so he's going to be around for a
Yeah.
while, allegedly, unless they want to buy him out. And he's got a very large buyout if they decide to fire him without cause. Um, I was trying to look it up. Let's see. What is his buyout? So as of December 1st, 2024, Franklin's buyout would be nearly $57 million.
Still not as much as Jimbo Fisher.
Nope. Kirby Smart has the biggest buyout, 118 mil.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll ever have to buy him out though.
I don't want to say
you
would hope
ever.
not. You would hope not.
I don't know.
Golly.
Knock on wood real quick.
Speaking of Georgia, I don't mean we kind of missed this while we were talking about them. I wanted to just revisit it for our man Levi Stanfield, who always jumps in the chat. We appreciate you, Levi. And if you're one of the people that are watching right now, feel free to jump in the chat, ask us a question, give us a comment based on what we're talking about. We'll always pull it up here. We love when people interact with us. So continue to interact with us. Levi wants to know, does Ole Miss versus Georgia game, is that going to be a shootout, or will the defense shut them down? Jackson Dart played extremely good football this past weekend. Good to see, obviously not against a top tier opponent, but still able to do that. And we like to see that. So would you like to take a stab at Levi's question?
Sure. So first thing, if as a Georgia fan, I don't want them to be in any shootouts the way that Carson's playing, because he's going to be shooting the ball out to the other team. But no, I think very stylistically, this game feels kind of similar to the Texas game for me. Now, I'm not saying that Lane and Sark run the exact same scheme, because I don't know if they do. I don't believe they do, but I haven't looked at tape to confirm. But mostly where I'm coming at that angle from is that the Texas O-line would widely be considered much better than the Ole Miss O-line, and I don't think a lot of people would argue that. And the way that you were able to pressure Quinn Ewers, I think you'll also be able to pressure Jackson Dart. He's not Jalen Milroe. He's not going to make a stud future NFL linebacker look like a 5-year-old when he jukes around him. So I think that game is gearing up to be very similar to Texas, and how you're going to be able to put pressure on Jackson Dart. I'm still worried, because if Carson spots him 3, then that's not an offense you want to spot 3, So, I mean, thank God it's not a night game. It's the 3:30 game. I think that helps Georgia a little bit. I think you can tell in the presser that Lane was a little angry about that. I think he really wanted that to be a night game just for the atmosphere.
Yeah.
But no, I think the Georgia defense has a very good potential to have a similar outcome like they did against Texas versus Ole Miss. So, but we'll see.
Well, you know what? Speaking of Ole Miss, I kind of maybe misspoke a little bit. I mentioned that they didn't play a top tier opponent. Now, obviously, Arkansas has been good at times this year. They beat Tennessee. Obviously, we know that. But we talked about it on Thursday. I talked about it on our little write up when it comes to with the Substack. And you can follow us on Substack as well, Chat It Up Sports, if you're up on Substack. But that game being at 11 a.m. Central Time really worked in Ole Miss's favor. Like that was Tennessee going to LSU. We talked about in 2022. Like, That was best case scenario. And I know people are going to sit there and look at those two games between Tennessee only being able to put up 14 points against Arkansas and Ole Miss going to Fayetteville and putting up 60 points. And it's like those were two different atmospheres. Like you can't even compare those two games.
Yeah, and that's also different points in the season. I mean, like it's just that feels like a very transitive property take, and it's like, buddy, it's like we said on Thursday. You get 12 instances of these teams. Obviously, when Arkansas got Tennessee, that was a much better instance of Arkansas than it was on Saturday at 11. So, Matt's back in the chat. Joseph claimed at the beginning of the season that Dabo would be in the hot seat by the end of the year. Doesn't the result of this past weekend accelerate that? We had talked about it a little bit pre-show, Greg. That's one of the games I wanted to bring up. So I'm just going to start with this, Matt. There was a time this year where I was starting to sip the Clemson Kool-Aid a little bit. Dabo had invited me in. He took my coat, he put it on the rack, handed me a nice purple cup with that big tiger paw on it. He said, "Hey man, have you a nice little drink." I was like, "You know what, Dabo? Like I'll take it." He goes, "Hey man, we got you some pizza right here on the table. Like, go ahead, help yourself." I was like, "Oh man, Dabo, you like, okay, I can see it. I kind of see the vision. Like you treat me right." And then next thing I know, I'm getting woken up and I'm getting hit in the head by this red bird. And it's just like, hey, Clemson's still Clemson. Dabo's still hard-headed. And luckily I got snapped out of that. Man, you get just absolutely taken to the shed. You get beat with a baseball bat by a Louisville team that's playing their 7th game in a row, and you're off a bye. You're Clemson off a bye at home at night, and you just get Louisville slugger to the kneecaps, man.
Yes.
Like, I just don't. It's not a good look for Dabo, man. It's not. And I sat on here and I kind of bought into Clemson a little bit. And I told you guys, I was like, hey, be careful, man. Miami's kind of goofing. They're kind of looking nonchalant. That's the perfect time for Dabo to just be like, hey, we've been here before. Well, Dabo, you ain't going to be there this year because SMU just destroyed Pitt and you couldn't beat Louisville at home. Jeff Brom just took you to the wood chipper, man. Like Jeff Brom just put on a coaching clinic in Clemson, South Carolina, and just reminded Clemson fans, like, you are not the Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence versions of Clemson. You are very much I don't want to average team. Like, you're an average team that was beating up on some really bad teams. And I'll say it. They started to get me. And
you got a little bit.
I mean, luckily, man, my hero, Jeff Brom, reached from the depths, pulled me up for air and said, brother, they're too hard-headed. They want to do things the Clemson way. They don't want to take transfer players. They don't want to fill holes that they have. They're not recruiting like they used to be, and they're not taking transfer players. It's like, thank you, Brom.
Hell yeah, brother.
Appreciate you, Jeff Brom. But yeah, dude,
Bring us back to reality.
Clemson's got some tough looks in the mirror, and I don't know, man. I'm off the Dabo Kool-Aid for a while. I'm gonna hold my opinions of Clemson in a much less volatile position. So
yeah, when you put out the core 4 this week and you let us vote on it, I wanted this game in there because I wanted to take Louisville. I knew some people would be on Clemson, and I was like, I'm going to take Louisville. I want this to be in there, and nobody else voted for it. And I was like, son of a. If only we were allowed to wager still, but cannot do that anymore. Anyways, yeah, this was a game that it reminded everybody what Clemson is now. They are not a team that is built for the big time. They're not a team that honestly should be in the college football playoff. The schedule, as you mentioned, incredibly light, as it always is. And they were banking that NC State would be better, and they were banking that Florida State would be better, but they're beating up on these bottom of the barrel type ACC teams, and then they run into obviously Georgia in the beginning of the year, get dog walked, and then you lose at home at night against Louisville. Who, look, Louisville's having a pretty nice season. They played Miami tough, 6-3, 4-2 in the conference, but they're not top of the pop. But they are a good team, and that was a team that you and I think, were in agreement with or on that they could be a team that would be kind of a sleeper team in the ACC, a team that could potentially surprise. And you know what? They surprised a little bit because Clemson had been riding high. Everybody was ready to, like you were, to kind of get back on the Dabo train. And, even our man, even TriStar says it. Clemson is finito. They are done.
They're
right.
relegated to, I mean, they're not, like, don't get me wrong, they're not bottom of the barrel. Like Clemson's they're not a dumpster fire, but they're not Clemson. They're not the Clemson that we're used to seeing. They're not, pumping out first round quarterbacks and first round receivers and first round D linemen. And I'm wondering, what this feels like? Watching Clemson as closely as I have since the Deshaun Watson and since Taj Boyd, actually, watching Clemson and how they are now, it's like the opening scene from Pirates of the Caribbean where Jack Sparrow's just on the ship and it's like he's barely out of the water and the ship's going down and he just makes it to the dock. Like, is Dabo going to make it to the dock, or is he going to go down with it? Like, is he going to get off the dock and be like, okay, guys, we got to change some things around here? Or is he just going to sink with the ship, man? And he feels like the guy that's going to sink with the ship.
It feels like it,
and
too.
If you're a Clemson fan, it's just a tough look, man. It's just because you know what you can be, and you know what you have been, and you're just not. And so tough, tough for the purple and orange there.
Agree or disagree with TriStar?
Louisville needs to be in the Big Ten. No.
Why
no,
not?
I think Louisville's good in the ACC. I don't think why not in the Big Ten? Yes. I think they'd get bullied kind of like USC's getting bullied.
Soft
for now.
squad.
For now, just for now, I think Jeff Brom has a much better chance to turn that program into something that they probably haven't been in a while and make them much more consistent than they haven't been in a while. But I like Louisville in the ACC because for me, I don't want to see these teams, these good teams that are in like the ACC and the Big 12 move. I want conferences to stay conferences. Like, instead of Louisville moving to the Big 10, how about the ACC just get better? Like, Florida State, get your shit together. Clemson, get your ish together. Like, I don't know, man. I think they're fine in the ACC.
All right. Well, speaking of that game, obviously we spoke on that game a little bit with Clemson and Louisville, and I know that's one you wanted to talk about. What about how it directly affects another game that was on our core for SMU? Talking about boat racing, dog walking, putting to the wood chipper, the whole 9 yards. SMU in Dallas, prime time, 8:00 game, 7:00 local time, just destroyed Pittsburgh. And it got so bad to the point our man Jay had to turn it off.
Yeah, I was watching this game and I was really excited because when we previewed this game, I threw out some stat profiles and I was like, Pitt's averaging like 40 points a game and SMU's averaging like 39 points a game. And it's like, I'm expecting high flying fun offense in Dallas. And it was a funeral in Dallas because Pitt just got absolutely boat raced. Yeah. I mean, SMU jumped out to like what was this lead they jumped out to? It was 31-3 at the half.
Oof.
31-3, and
Oof.
SMU could have stopped scoring, and they would have still won that game. So, was Pitt a fraud, Matt? A little bit, yeah. It's looking like they were. I mean, they dodged a close game against Cal. They probably deserved to lose that game because it was kind of ugly, and I think Cal had a chance to win but missed a field goal. So Pitt was probably a little overrated. I mean, yeah, rank them where they were because they were 7-0, and it's not easy to get to 7-0. Like I'm sure, but was anybody taking Pitt serious as like a ACC contender or like a playoff team? I don't think so. No. Um, and that quickly got reinforced when they went out to Dallas and just got a good old fashioned butt whooping. But yeah, I turned the game off. So analysis for the game: SMU won. The big takeaway, like you said, Greg, they are second in the ACC now,
I love
and
this.
uh, they have Boston College, Virginia, and Cal left on the schedule. So a not exactly a murderer's row of games left. It's looking like SMU is going to meet Miami in the ACC title game.
I
And
love that.
SMU was your preseason dark horse team, weren't they?
Yes, yes, it
I thought
was.
so. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one, Chief. Good pick,
Acting
man.
like
Good
I
pick.
know something about college football. Acting, if it just shows if you do proper research and you
Mm-hmm.
listen to people that are much smarter than you can look smart as well. You know, I'm not going to say that I came up with that all on my own. That was me doing some research, watching some things, listening to some things, and we came up with SMU. And I'm glad that they are proving me right. And I'm glad all of us were on SMU. I think all of us were on SMU in that game.
Yeah, we all picked.
Yeah.
Nobody picked Pitt to win. I think everybody kind of knew it was like, yeah, Pitt's 7-0, but like I don't know if they'll be able to keep up with SMU. So yeah, we clean sweeped on that one. So
Yes, we like that. All right. So other games, from this one, I got to give Chase Green credit. He picked South Carolina. Was he the brave lone soul that picked South Carolina?
no, Miggy picked
Mickey did as
South
well.
Carolina as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep, those two got a little bit better, and Chase still sitting atop, even though we got the Ohio State pick, or he picked Penn
yep,
State.
yep.
But just an embarrassing game by Texas A&M, but it kind of just plays into what we've been talking about, and kind of what was the theme of last week that I wrote about in the Substack was
Mm-hmm.
the game times and the atmospheres and the environments. And we saw it happen to Tennessee in 2022, and it happened to Texas A&M as well. They got beat up and beat down by Beamer ball
Mm-hmm.
in Columbia, South Carolina at night.
Yep.
These environments and game times, they really matter most of the time.
Yeah. And dude, Williams Bryce is slept on in terms of atmosphere, man. I mean, it's not the Sahara, but damn it, there's a sandstorm out there. Sorry, I couldn't help. I couldn't help but get that one
I
out.
like it.
No, man, but I mean, going back and listening to my, you know, like listening to our picks for this game, I listened to my own analysis and I thought, okay, okay, okay. And if I would have paused it as I was listening to myself make points
Mm-hmm.
right before I made my pick, I would have thought, oh, he's going to pick South Carolina. And then for some reason, I was just like, nope, going with an AM because I was like, yeah, they had a good strategy against Bama and they had a good strategy against Jalen Milroe and Milroe's a better athlete than Marcel Reed, so they've seen this kind of offense before. They'll know what to do. And then I was like, I based most of it off of Lenore Sellers, and
Yes, you did.
South Carolina was so due for one of these games after the way that the LSU game had gone and after the way that the Alabama game had gone. They were so due for one of these games, and they were due for one of them to go their way. And this is one of those results where it's like, if they had just played this clean in the Alabama game, they'd have beat Bama. And if they'd have played this clean in the LSU game, they'd have beat LSU. I mean, Lenore Sellers, looked the best he's looked all season. 13 for 27 passing, 244 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also ran the ball really well. He looks like he's going to be a force for South Carolina in that offense. So if you're a Gamecock fan, I think you are in a good spot with Lenore Sellers. And then that defense, dude, that defense is legitimate.
Yeah.
I think this might be the first time in a long time as a Georgia fan, I'm kind of looking over there and I'm like, what y'all got over there in Columbia? Y'all can just keep that. Y'all can just keep that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to. I ain't got no business seeing Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart. Like, good for y'all. Y'all can have it. We'll see you next year when Kyle's gone and it's just Dylan. Like,
Yeah.
But no, man, it's South Carolina was due for this game, and boy, did they take full advantage of that time and that atmosphere. And they looked like they were on a mission, and they accomplished it. South Carolina, that defense is fun to watch. Kyle Kennard's fun to watch. Dylan Stewart is going to be insane. I'm hoping that someone doesn't, coerce him into certain NIL deals and he stays with South Carolina. So, yeah. Lenore Sellers, Heisman 2026.
Matt.
Matt, I'm going to say no. And the reason I'm going to say no is because it's hard for me to see Lenore Sellers winning the Heisman when he's not going to be the best player on his team in 2026. Dylan Stewart will be the best player on that team. So Lenore Sellers is fun. He's a good story, but it's going to take a lot for me to put him on the Heisman train. Dude gave the mobile quarterback vibes in the 20 teens. He did, man. He did. So it's a good look for South Carolina. It's a feel good, but it's also like we really could be like 6-2 or maybe even 7-1 if you're South Carolina. Rest of the season for the Gamecocks, man, 4 very winnable games. They got Vandy coming up.
No, that's not a very winnable game.
I think with the way that defense plays, they can make things very, very difficult for Vanderbilt.
And Diego Pavia.
Yes, I think that defense could just because of how athletic they are on the D line and how good Kyle Kennard and how good Dylan Stewart are. I think that could be a very tough game for Vandy. Yeah. Missouri's fraudulent. Like somebody get Brady Cook like a bubble, put him in a bubble for that game because he is just not going to have a good time. Obviously, Wofford. And then Clemson, man, after what we watched from Clemson this week, if y'all are the praying type, start praying for Cade Klubnik now because he's going to be running for his life.
Look, Beamer's beaten Dabo before to end seasons.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't.
No reason he can't do it now.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
There is very much a path for South Carolina to go 4-0. Now, the most South Carolina thing to do would be to go 2-2 in this stretch. So
after a big win, of course,
we will see. So
yeah. Well, all right. Let's quickly, just pan to the rest of college football from this past weekend. There was something else that stood out to me that I wanted to mention to you. Other than Oregon looking legit, they've beaten Ohio State and Michigan already in this season, and welcome to the conference. But there was something else that stood out to me. Obviously, Iowa State losing was good for Tennessee. Mm-hmm. The other thing that stood out to me was how about our man PJ Fleck out there flexing on them in the Big Ten and defeating Illinois at Illinois.
Row the boat, baby. Damn. Row the boat, man. Like when this line came out, and I think it had said that Minnesota was favored. I kind of looked at it and I was like, what does Vegas know? Because everything up to this point would have told me like Illinois got this scrappy defense. Luke Altmaier's playing kind of decent football. What do you know? And sure enough, Minnesota come out and balled. Ski you my baby. Row the boat. PJ Fleck gets another one in the win column. 6-3 on the season. 6-3 at Minnesota, bro.
Yeah, he's done good out there in Minnesota. They've been quietly having a pretty nice season. Good
things for them. There is one other thing as long as we're touching on the full landscape. Indiana just boat raced Michigan State. It's like,
Weren't they
I
losing
mean,
early in that game?
they were losing early on.
Yeah, I
It
thought
was
so.
10-0 in the first quarter,
Yeah, I
and
was like,
then
damn.
yeah. So Michigan State played the first quarter and then got on the bus and left and thought the game was over because Indiana just proceeded to rip off 21 points in the second quarter, 12 in the third quarter, 14 in the fourth quarter. Hoosiers are 9-0. The Sig Man is absolutely balling, and they play Michigan at home this weekend. So shout out to the Hoosiers, baby.
Yep. Shout out
14-point
to the
favorites.
Hoosiers. Not just a basketball school anymore.
Oh, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
All right. Well, if that's all you got from the college football ranks, why don't we transition over to the National Football League a little bit?
Sure, man. Let's hit some NFL before we head out of here.
Okay. Well, we got a Monday Night Football game going on for those of you who are paying attention to it. Surprisingly, the Buccaneers leading the Kansas City Chiefs at Kansas City 14-10 right now. 8 minutes to go in the third quarter. The Bucs have the football. Patrick Mahomes has not been great in this game. Kate Otten he's been balling lately with Evans and Godwin out, 7 catches for 70 yards and a tug. And then you know what? Honestly, like I had kind of a feeling this week on DeAndre Hopkins, and he has caught a touchdown in this game. The only touchdown for the Chiefs so far, a short 1 yard receiving score, but he leads all receivers, and this is kind of what I was hoping for with DeAndre Hopkins coming to Kansas City, as all Kansas City fans were, that he was going to sort of take over that lead wide receiver role, show that he's got a little juice left in the tank playing with Patrick Mahomes, and he's going 6 for 66. I know it's a lot of sixes, and we're going to knock on wood, we don't like all of those sixes, but he also has a touchdown as well. Trav has been in the mix heavily as well. And not a lot of Xavier Worthy, just 2 targets in this game. But yeah, Kansas City's got to do some work if they want to win this football game. But give credit to Baker Mayfield. He's been efficient, and the running game has not been very good. But they're finding a way right now with the football up 4.
Shout out Baker, man. I'm so glad he's doing well after the way that, I don't know, just watching the way that it ended with the Browns and how they were just, I don't know, almost felt like ungrateful because he won a playoff game there, and I don't know. Good for Baker, man.
Yeah, good for Baker. He's Johnny Manziel without the drug and alcohol problem.
And he watches film.
And he does do that. He does watch film, clearly. He needed to watch film because allegedly, if you don't watch film, you're probably, again, this is just allegedly, you're probably not going to stay around in the National Football League. It'll really stand for not for long if you do not watch film.
That's what we've heard. You know, it's just what we've heard.
Big thing coming out of this weekend. I know we're regionally Titans and Falcons, but man, the Saints losing a bad game to the Carolina Panthers. I know it was on the road, but after that game, and I know they lost Chris Olave early on in this game with I think it was a head injury or something along those lines.
A concussion, I believe, his fifth concussion, something like that.
That's not good for that young man.
No.
Honestly, like I know we've talked about this in the past, Jay, but like I really don't understand why more players, and I think we're starting to see more and more players wearing the Guardian caps, and they don't look bad. I don't really notice them unless like you really get a zoom up of the player, and then you're like, oh, like that's not actually the helmet, that's a Guardian cap on top of the helmet. If you have that technology to like be safer and to try to like protect your head better, I don't at this rate, like with as many concussions that are happening, like I don't understand why everybody in the National Football League doesn't wear them unless they're just like that stigmatism like there used to be with like mental therapy, like, oh, like there must be something wrong with you, or you're crazy, or like if you wear a Guardian cap, you're weak, or whatever it may be.
It feels like that's probably what it is it's more of just like a stigma around like what it is versus like how they actually feel about it and how it's perceived. I think it's one of those things that like it'll probably start out now being kind of niche, but as it becomes more normalized, you'll probably start to see more guys wear it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking over just at Monday Night Football real quick. One of the linemen for the Buccaneers is wearing one. So like, I don't know. I think it's one of those things that like it's new, so a lot of players are like, I'm gonna hold off. But
Yeah.
you know, and as it gets used more, with more science coming out on how effective it actually is, you might see more players start to opt in.
Yeah, I think so as well. The big storyline other than that came from this game, Dennis Allen, after a 2-0 start, has lost 7 games, and he has been relieved of his duties out there in New Orleans. This from I know you're not the biggest NFL guy, but from the jump, I know he was there when I was covering the Saints, when Sean
Mhm.
Payton was there, and I lived in did sports talk radio in Louisiana. He seemed like a good defensive coordinator. He's like one of those guys that like is a great coordinator, like a Steve Spagnuolo, who got the head coaching job in New York and was terrible, and then you had Ben McAdoo also in New York, who was terrible. Some of these
Mhm.
guys, Matt Nagy from Chicago, like some of these guys are just simply better as coordinators, and it seems
Yeah.
like Dennis Allen is one of those guys. He will land somewhere if he wants to in the National Football League as a defensive-minded coach, whether it's a DC or
Yeah.
positional coach or whatever it may be, but
Mhm.
he was just never the man to replace Sean Payton. Like, I don't know what they're going to do there in New Orleans. I wish Sean would have never left, but I kind of can't blame him after you had Drew Brees. Like, I understand, like, there were some good pieces there, but Derek Carr ain't it. One of the worst contracts in the NFL, incredibly overpaid. And I know they do have some good pieces there. And I know Alvin Kamara has talked a lot about it after the game. He was kind of like, he was asked about it. And he's like, look, like, all I'm going to say is we have the players.
Yeah.
It's not the players. He wouldn't blame the coach, but he blamed the coaches indirectly.
He said it without he said what we were all
Exactly.
thinking. Like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Because that man balled
um,
out.
yeah, dude.
Alvin's
And
had a great year.
it's one of those things where it's like the Saints started so hot in the first 2 games, and they were averaging like, was it 44 points a game or something, like something ridiculous like that. And then Derek Carr gets hurt, and then you're starting Spencer Rattler, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. Um, I mean, if you're the Saints, are you just on the Ben Johnson train? Like, who's going to be lucky enough to get this man when if he finally decides to leave Detroit?
Yeah.
Like, I don't, I don't, I don't really know who else you would go after, at least from a first ticket standpoint. Um, but it's tough with the Derek Carr contract. They just signed Kamara to another 2 years, right?
They did. Yep.
So
Mhm.
at least you have some solidarity at running back.
And I think they
I'm
like Kendre Miller in terms of like maybe a longer term answer.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams isn't the guy there. It's going to be him and Kendre Miller. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think you're in trouble with Chris Olave with all of his head injuries.
Yeah.
You're in trouble with Derek Carr. I just have never believed in him in terms of an option there. I I know Jameis didn't look great this week, but I was kind of really steadfast that like I didn't think like that you had to pay a lot for a quarterback. You could basically get what you've got out of Derek Carr for less money with
Yeah.
Jameis Winston.
James, yeah, for sure, dude. And I don't know. GMs will keep doing what GMs do to get fired, and that was a bad play to hire Derek Carr like that, dude.
It happens. It certainly happens. And going to the other side of the division, Matt's been hanging out with us. Matthew's been hanging out with us all evening. We appreciate you, Matthew Williamson, for hanging out. He said, nice to be excited about Atlanta football since the last Super Bowl disaster. Look, Kirk Cochains he's been really good. And I understand that the Cowboys are the Cowboys right now. And it looks like the wheels, Joseph, are about to fall off. And I know we're supposed to focus on the Falcons. And I want to focus on the Falcons.
Yeah.
But the wheels are about to fall off in Big D because Dak's going to be out for a couple weeks. It seems
Yep.
like CeeDee Lamb is going to be week to week with an injury as well. It just seems like everybody's like quitting on Mike McCarthy and quitting on this Dallas team. There's no
Yep.
way, or there's no earthly way that Dallas is going to make the postseason this year. Their defense isn't very good. The offense is very one-dimensional, even though Rico Dowdle had a pretty good game in this game. And you saw
Hmm.
Dak actually get outside the pocket a little bit in this one. But
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook doesn't have any burst. Zeke is missing meetings, coming late the meetings or whatever it may be. And Cooper Rush is not going to deliver you to the promised land, especially if he does not have a guy like CeeDee Lamb. It's all downhill for the Dallas Cowboys, and I couldn't be happier about
I feel like you and every other NFL fan base outside of one. So
it. You
outside
are
of
right.
the Cowboys, as a neutral observer, I'm like, it sucks, man. I kind of have started. I mean, I don't really want to say feel bad for Cowboys fans, but it's like, you they've it's kind of snowballed for them the way it did for the Saints. Like Dak's down, CD's down. Uh, you brought Zeke back for whatever reason. I don't really know why. I think Zeke's kind of done. Um, box it up, put a label on it, ship it to 2025, man. I mean, you're just at this point. I don't know if McCarthy will survive. I don't know if McCarthy will survive this with Jerry Jones, breathing down his neck, as uncomfortable as it is to visualize that. Um, I don't. It's rough for the Cowboys, man.
It is,
It's
and on the
hard
other
to
side, it's good for the Falcons. They score in every single
Great.
quarter in this game. Kirk
Yep.
Cousins looks like that. Look, steady hand. He looks healthier now. Obviously, did not look very healthy at the beginning of the season. Looks
Mhm.
healthier now. Steady hand at the quarterback position, and I know there's a little bit of scariness going on around Drake London because obviously
Mhm.
he's been your number one wide receiver this year. He went out with a hip pointer. He avoided major injury there, which is obviously a good thing. He's going to be good. He'll be fine moving forward. But what I think the bigger thing and bigger storyline within this team and this offense
Mhm.
for the Falcons is that they may have a 1A and a 1B. And the 1B is not Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, dude. Darnell Mooney.
Yes.
Woo!
Yes.
Stole that man. What was it? Three
Stole him.
3 years, 36 million is what they got him
Great
for.
contract. We were just talking about how bad Derek Carr's contract is. How
Yeah.
great is that Darnell Mooney contract right now?
And if you're Darnell Mooney, it's also one of those things where it's like, yeah, you probably getting underpaid right now, but you're working your way towards a new contract and you're winning games. Like that's got to feel good, man. You're a part of a team that could very much make a run into the playoffs. I don't know if I'd go as far to say win a Super Bowl. I don't know if I'm quite there yet. Um, but it's got to feel good, man, to be playing on a team that is consistent and you're getting consistent work. You guys are looking good going this far into the season. Um, it's a good time to be a fan of the Dirty Birds.
It
So
sure is. Look, this is again, we've talked about it with Miggy. Like this is not a team that should lose their division, especially now with the injuries to Tampa Bay, how horrific their secondary is and how bad their defense is out there in Tampa Bay. Although again, they're doing a decent job now. But kind of going back to Darnell Mooney and what you were talking about with him, this was a nice little prove it deal for him because he obviously had the really good year in 2021 where he was a 1,000-yard receiver. He had 140 targets. He had over 80 receptions. He had 4 touchdowns, and he's never scored more than 4 touchdowns in a season until this year. And he's already outgained his total from the last 2 years. He failed to get even 500 yards the last 2 years within that anemic Bears passing attack. Now he comes to Atlanta with a legit quarterback who's being
yeah,
protected a lot better now. And you see the fruits of the labor, and he's got more touchdowns in a single season than he's had in any season in his NFL career. He's already got 5. He's up near 600 yards already this year. This is a legitimate second option, which is kind of interesting because you always thought it was going to be Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I
mhm.
loved Darnell Mooney. I was hoping Mac Hollins would be what Darnell Mooney is this year. I was hoping that was going to be him last year. Along with that, you've still got, the boom and zoom with Bijan Robinson, who was 4.5 yards a carry. Tyler Algier plunged into the end zone, wasn't super efficient when he got his opportunities to run, and he scored the touchdown there when Bijan got you down. And Ray McLeod has been really good and consistent for them as well. Not quite where Darnell Mooney is, but he's been a nice surprise as well. And it's really interesting. Like if you are a, let's say like a mid-tier, slightly above average wide receiver, kind of like a Darnell Mooney, or even an average wide receiver, like it is so important. And if it were me doing that, Jay, like I would be searching out a team that had a decent offensive line, a good veteran quarterback that could get me the football that I know is, hey, we have an opportunity to play within a good offense. Because again, you get a short-term deal, you look good in the season, you go out there and you potentially get paid, or at the very least, you get a chance to win and produce.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah! Like you in the situation, like in some of these situations, like you are in Atlanta, like would be very similar with the Vikings, with the Packers, and the way that they are. Like you just find these situations where you have steady quarterback play, and like you said, a good offensive line and a good offensive scheme, and a head coach who has their head on their shoulders screwed like straight, and knows how to get the ball to their playmakers, and you can go out there and earn yourself some money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you certainly can. And that's exactly what the Falcons are doing. With that win, they improved to 6-3, 3-3 at home. We did get a scoring update. The Bucks did get a field goal, so it's 17-7, 17-10. But the Chiefs are driving, so there's that too. It was a really good game between the Bills and the Dolphins out there in Orchard Park. The Bills get a win, 4-0 at home, stay perfect there. They seem like the class of the AFC East. The Dolphins continue to sink away. Obviously, I know that they didn't have Tua for most of the season. Devon Achane is finally looking like a legit weapon, and they didn't even have Amari Cooper. And Josh Allen continues to play really good ball. And again, it's him. We talked about this on Thursday, dude. It's him not playing hero ball. It's not him having 14 carries in a game and trying to do everything and throwing 3 picks. It's, hey, yeah, he made one bad play. He threw an interception, but he also had three touchdowns. He threw for over 235 yards, and he was able to get the ball to the right guys in the right times when they need it. And he spread the ball around like crazy. What'd you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dudes catch football.
Yeah. 235 passing yards. It feels like one of those situations where when you spoke about Josh not having to play hero ball, he still has the running ability that he has, but now instead of it having to be a necessity, it's a luxury. So it's like, hey Josh, you don't have to go out there and carry the ball, 10 times, but if you want to scramble on like a 3rd and 6 and pick up a first down, like you can still do that. You still have that capability. So he's making plays, getting the ball to his playmakers, and also maintaining his health with not having to run the ball as much. So good time for the Bills, man. Good time for the Bills, and Josh Allen's playing MVP level ball, maybe.
It's got to be him or Lamar, right? Like, or Derrick Henry potentially. Like, I mean, throw both of their names in the mix there. Derrick Henry, dude, I know we've talked about it. He's just an incredible specimen. Like,
dude,
to be like this highly used year in and year out, and to still have this level of effectiveness, it's just something that I just like marvel at. Like I'm just like, I watch this dude run, and again, like I know Chase always says it, like, how are we the same species? Like, how are we the same person? Like I think he's probably younger than we are, or at least I am.
Yeah, he's 20. I think
like
Derek's
29,
27, 28. Something. Oh, is it?
No way.
Hang on.
Really?
Please.
Shut up. What is he? He is 30 years old. He's 30 years old.
Oh, is he 30? Okay.
Yeah. I was like, come on now. He ain't in his 20s anymore, dog.
Okay.
It's
unfair that somebody that big moves that fast, man.
I know.
Like, it's just insane.
It's crazy.
And it's like, it was the same way when he was at Bama, man. It's like, did you see the breakdown the other day where they showed his high school carries, his college carries, and his NFL carries? He like doubled up in high school, how much he's carried the ball and at Alabama and in the NFL like combined.
That's wild.
But I mean, it's, have you seen him in high school?
I think I have seen in the past highlights of him in high school.
Dude, he looks like a man playing a bunch of like peewee football players. He looks like a grown man playing a bunch of peewee football players. It's absolutely insane, dude. But as long as we're talking about running backs, can we just talk about, because I know it's been talked about a lot, I still don't think it's been talked about enough. Saquon, reverse hurdle. I mean, you just got like the entire front office of the Giants fired. You literally
Should
just
have.
lost like the whole front office their jobs. What was that?
Dude, it was so cool, like, it was such a smooth play as well, like, you could literally I don't know if you, like, watched the slow motion version of it, like, when he first did I think it was a spin move, and
Yeah,
then he, like I think you could see him sorta, like, peek that, like, a defender was coming, and he's like, "F it, I'm just gonna jump backwards and hopefully, like, no like, as much football IQ that he has and as smart as he is as a player, he's like, in that split-second moment when he sees that defender coming, he's like, "Alright, I know exactly how he's gonna try to tackle me, and I'm
yeah.
just going to counteract it by jumping over him, but, oh, yeah, I'm gonna do it backwards. I'm gonna
I
do it ass
just
backwards."
like
That was so cool. That was one of the
that to
smoothest things I've
me.
ever seen.
That to me is like that's up there with like the OBJ catch for running backs. That's
Yes.
where that lives for me. I mean, I just dude hacked the matrix. He did. It felt like he stopped time,
Yes.
jumped, kept time going. Like
I wish he would have, like, been I wish he wouldn't have, like, immediately got hit, like, after he hurdled. I wish, like, he
yeah,
did that and then just, like, continued running and then maybe got
yeah,
tackled a little bit later, but, I mean, it doesn't take away how cool it was.
dude. I mean, imagine you're Tyson Campbell standing like because he's the guy that hits him after standing right there. You just watched your teammate get reverse hurdled. Like, what do you say to him? You-
Get him next time, big dog. Give him a little
Go sit on the
pat on
bench
the
for a play, Chief. You need to just like you need to
yeah, take a
process
play
because they're
off.
about to play on the big board what just happened to you, and you're not gonna like it.
No, you're gonna be on highlight reels for the rest of the week
Yeah, dude,
or
you're
your
gonna be on
entire
highlight
life
reels for the rest of
time.
time. That I
Yep.
mean, that play is gonna get played on the NFL Top 100.
Yeah.
It's gonna get played on SportsCenter Top 10 for probably the rest of the year. It's gonna get played whenever Saquon inevitably goes into the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
I mean, like, change your name, move to Puerto Rico. I mean, it's just, you got reverse
Go to
hurdle, dude.
witness protection program for
You
sure.
got reverse hurdle, bro. Like,
Damn.
I just incredible, man. Hats off to Saquon. That was
Hats
just
off to Saquon, big time. Hats off to the Titans. I'd be remiss if we didn't at least acknowledge that they got a win. Tony
they
Pollard
did.
acting like a legitimate running back, something he couldn't do in Dallas, but quietly having a really nice season for Tennessee.
One of the bright spots
And he
in
wasn't even they weren't even sure he was going to play, and everybody in fantasy football world was like, pick up Julius Chestnut, pick up Julius Chestnut. Oh, they activated or they elevated Joshua Kelly from the practice squad. Like, no, Tony Pollard's like, I'm gonna go out there and tote the rock 30 times, and I'm gonna go over 4.5 yards a carry, and I'm gonna carry us to a victory.
hold my beer and watch this. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
ball.
come on. Sit down, little boys. I got
Dude,
this.
and then like, did you see Drake Mays? Like, I that kid's something, man.
They may have a little something with Drake May. He's got some flair for the dramatic. Now he wasn't fantastic in this game.
No,
Um, but
but
he made the play when he needed to make the play at the very end of the game. And look, I mean, it plays right into the Titans' deficiency. They can't get any pressure on anybody, and I get it. It was they're rushing for whatever it was. They were trying to play coverage. And speaking of coverage, Quandre Diggs out for the year. That's tough. Lloyd Cushenberry also tore his Achilles. He's out for the year. So the offensive line that was already bad gets even worse. So yeah, not a lot of good stuff there for the Tennessee Titans, but they found a way to win, and I guess they got their first home win, which is cool. But at the same time, like in the race for the worst record in the NFL, like now the Patriots just passed you and whatnot. So you have 2 wins.
yep,
Yay.
pack it up, ship it to 2025.
Speaking of packing, the Green Bay Packers did not perform well in that monsoonish rain. The Lions, I do not know why anybody is questioning whether a Dan Campbell led team can play in the elements. Like that just seems like
What?
yes, that's what they were talking about on the broadcast. I'm like, shut up. They're the Lions. This is one of the most hard-nosed teams in the NFL. Dan Campbell bites off kneecaps. There's no way this team is not going to be able to play in some rain at Lambeau Field.
Dude, if they could have it their way, they'd be playing in the snow.
Oh, I mean, if
Like,
it were BK, they would definitely have it their way and they'd be playing in the snow for sure.
yeah, playing in horrible conditions. Like
Yeah,
they're
they
just
handled it extremely well. Like,
yeah,
Packers wide receivers were having all kinds of problems trying to catch the football out there. They had like 4 or 5 drops, and Jared Goff just goes out here, as you said, hold my beer, and I'm gonna go 18 for 22 in a monsoon. Yeah, I only threw for a buck 45, but I didn't really need to. Jordan Love had one of the worst pick sixes I've ever seen, and he just continues to throw interceptions. He battled out there. I'll give him a lot of credit. I know they didn't play well in this game, but um, he had the groin injury. You could tell was still bothering him. He couldn't move, and it's a good time for the bye week. Part of me appreciates that he went out there and tried to play, but also part of me was like, maybe it would have been better if you had 2 weeks to prepare, because I think we really need Jordan Love to be at his best if we want to make any sort of run this year.
yeah,
But the Lions are a legitimate team. Like, the Lions are really, really good, and you have Jared Goff, as I mentioned, only throwing for a buck 45, and they still win by 10. And the defense played pretty well with the elements, and they were able to stop the Packers when they needed to. They had a lot of problems stopping Josh Jacobs, and Jayden Reed had a couple of really nice gains in this one, but it was the drops and it was the penalties, and the Packers are the Packers' worst enemy. Like, the Packers are best at beating the Packers. I
mm-hmm.
don't think the Lions like manhandled the Packers and won this game, because the Packers outgained them in a big way. But the Packers also had a lot of they had the turnover, they had the pick six that gave the Lions, 7 points, and
yeah,
they had what was it, 10 penalties in this game. I know it was only for 67 yards, but still, like, they outgained the Lions in this game 411 to 261. So, like, to me, yes, the Lions won this game. I give them a lot of credit, but Jordan Love was dealing some injuries, and they still prove that they can put up yardage. So, like,
mm-hmm.
I am not, as a Packers fan, I know they're 0-2 in the division, but I'm not in panic mode right now. I did see some
Yeah,
good things. Again, you got the bye week. Hopefully that'll help the groin injury for Jordan Love, and I think they'll be okay. But the Lions are still really good. I'm not taking anything away from them.
yeah. They're one of the best teams in football right now. So,
Oh, for sure.
um, as far as this game, because I don't think there's much more I can add to what you said. How did you feel about the Brian Branch ejection? Did you think that was warranted, or like not the flag? Because I fully understand, and I think we can both agree that the flag was warranted. Um, but how did you feel about them coming back and ultimately ejecting him um, from the game?
I don't like most of the time to agree with Tom Brady, but I will have to agree with Tom Brady on this one. Like, I don't think that was one of the most malicious hits I've ever seen. Like, did he like lower his head a little bit? He did have a
Yeah,
little shoulder in there, but he did lower his helmet. Like, yeah,
yeah,
throw the flag, 15 yards, keep it moving. Like, I
yeah.
really didn't think there was any reason for New York to chime in and to say, "Hey, we got to kick this."
Greg. Well, chat. I think we lost him. I don't know, but to finish this thought there, guys, I think what he was going to say is that throw the flag for sure, but we don't need to eject Brian Branch for this because, and I'm kind of with what Greg said. The hit was, you back? Hey, can you hear me? You're kind of cutting in and out a little bit. Just some live on the fly. What was the penalty for those of us that didn't see the game? So Matt, very similar to in college, the NFL doesn't have targeting as a the NFL doesn't have targeting as a penalty. They do, but it's not called targeting. It's just unnecessary roughness, and it's normally just a 15-yard penalty. Now, New York can buzz in and say, "Hey, this looked a little more egregious, so we can disqualify somebody from a game." So it was unnecessary roughness was technically the flag. It looked like one of those plays where it was very much it was very much unnecessary. He didn't need to lower his head into him. He didn't need to lead with the crown of the helmet. But to throw him out of the game, I think was a bit of a stretch. So, Greg, I see you're trying to battle back a little bit there. Oh, he dropped out. He'll come back. I'm sure he'll come back. But yeah, that's the thing. That's what it was, Matt. They don't have targeting in the NFL. They very much have, which is actually how, not to go back to college, but I think that's how college should do it. That's one thing they should take from the NFL. Just throw the flag and, have the booth review it. And if they think it was a egregious hit, something that felt malicious, something that felt like, hey, this was a little extra, this was a little bit, this looked intentional, then kind of throw the flag from there, or kind of, choose what to do with the player there. But let me text Greg and see if he's coming back. If not, we'll just probably end the show here. You coming back? But yeah, I'm with Greg. I don't think Brian Branch should have been thrown out. Like, throw the flag all day, but I'm for keeping players in the game. Like, unless he just blatantly does something to damage the to attempt to damage or injure another player, then keep him in the game. Sorry, chat. Greg said he's trying to get back in. Give him a minute. But I was seeing we've almost gone about 2 hours, and we've kind of covered everything we want. So we might wrap up the show here, and just see you guys on Thursday. So, hang on, he's texting me back. But yeah, just go ahead and go ahead. Okay, cool. Yeah, so chat, we're gonna go ahead and end. The show. Greg's having some technical issues. It's part of this business, part of doing online shows. So first off, just appreciate you guys for watching. Appreciate you guys for hanging out. Thanks for stopping by the show. Make sure you share the show with a friend, share it with a family member, share it with anybody you know. Get everybody on the Chatted Up train. We will be back on Thursday. We'll preview week 10 of the NFL season. We'll also preview week 11 of the college football season. Core 4 games are going to be coming at you. We got some big matchups this week. Alabama's going to LSU. Georgia's going to Ole Miss. We have some good games on the slate, so we'll make sure to bring those to you on Thursday. Again, appreciate you guys hanging out. Make sure you follow Chatted Up Sports on every platform, and we will see you on Thursday.